government officials insist the mission isolated and just the packet for now.
Hello and welcome everybody to MBW Live, the Movie Explorer. I'm Michael and we talk about movies here, and today is going to be a very special day and a very special episode because I'm going to have my first guest on, and his name is Dominick Cousineau-Benoit, and he directed and created Stalks II, a fan film. He also made Halloween Stalks, the first one, which came out a year or so ago, and he recently released Stalks II at the beginning of October, and then I myself made a Halloween fan film which came out shortly after that. And today I have him on here to talk about Stalks II, about Halloween fan films, the franchise, and whatever else we want to get into. So I'm going to just keep it at that. I'm going to bring him on right now.
They can't hear me? I can't hear myself. No audio on your guest. Nope. But you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Let's see if
The microphone is working here.
Okay, now they say they can.
So do we just start over from the beginning?
I guess. I mean, it's already live, so it is what it is, but
Still good, everyone? Marianne says now we can. Anybody else has trouble so far, or is it good? Marky Mark? Can you hear me, Marky Mark? I'm calling you out, Marky Mark.
Man. I'm sorry. See, I'm still new at this. Apparently,
early days. We were talking about it before going on air.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it happens. It's live, huh? It happens.
It happens. Well, I think they could hear me, so maybe
Marky Mark says yes.
They could read your lips and hear what I'm saying and figure it out. Well,
good luck with reading my lips. I already have an accent when I speak English. It's not my native language. So good luck with that.
Yeah, I guess they got to study this video. But just to recap of what we were talking about, essentially how our Halloweens were, and maybe you could just do a quick, 1 minute recap, just so they don't feel like they missed anything.
Yeah, sure thing. What I was saying is that it's okay, but it's not as it was. When I was a kid, people would decorate, people would craft their own decorations, but nowadays it's all those big plastic things that you will get at Walmart or something, so every houses will kind of look alike, but also not as much or as many people, it seems, will decorate now. So for one decorated house, you'll have two that are pitch black. And when I was a kid, like, full streets would be illuminated, so things change, but I don't know if kids nowadays they don't see the difference because they weren't there before, but I can see it, and I don't know, the nostalgic boy within me it lacks something, I'll say.
Yeah, I would say in general, it seems that like that whole the trick-or-treating thing and people decorating, that does seem to be kind of dying off, unfortunately.
But maybe we're just grown-ups and we don't see the magic as we used to do when we were kids. So we'd have to put our magic glasses, to see things differently.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's definitely part of it. And it also depends on where you live. I know some places go all out and other places barely do anything. But I do remember, or I guess I was lucky when I grew up, that the neighborhood I primarily grew up in, it seemed like, 70% of the houses were decorated, and there's just a lot of people doing it.
I live in a small town like 25 minutes away from Montreal, which is a very big city. And 2 or 3 days before Halloween, I was walking down some streets there, and not much of those porches were orned with pumpkins or decorations, so it's in decline. There's something that needs to be done. We need to make an intervention to the whole world.
Yeah.
Like you would see in How I Met Your Mother, they would always do those kind of interventions. So we'll have to bring everybody out and make an intervention. It's time to go back to the real Halloween.
There needs to be a PSA or something, but I know.
I'll let you start.
Yeah, I'll get it out there. I will say this year was the first year that me and my family went all out. Like, we'd always trick or treat or whatever, but as far as decorating, we never went like really crazy. This year, both inside and outside of our house, we decorated it, and there was a couple people, which I wasn't expecting, that actually came up. One of them was just driving by when I happened to be outside, and we're like, "Hey, God bless you guys. That's awesome. You guys did great work. Thank you for doing that." And then some other guy came up and rang our doorbell and was to say the same thing, like, "You guys are awesome. Thanks for keeping the spirit alive. Like, keep doing it." So, we're not alone out there.
It says a lot that you also decorated inside. You really did it because you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's not only for the show outside, but you brought the magic inside as well. So you really lived the spooky season with your family. So that's cool.
Yeah, I've always loved Halloween, and I haven't done it as much as I would have wanted. And yeah, I'm big into that. I like to feel that experience for as long as I can. Matter of fact, I still have the stuff up because I just don't want to let it go.
Yeah, it's hard to let go because after that it's Christmas, but in between it's like November, cold, but not much happens, huh? How long do you plan to let them out before people come knocking at your door? It's about time, man. It's about time.
All the way up till Christmas Eve. No, if it was up to me, all of November, but my wife's already was saying today we got to start taking them down, so they won't last much longer.
Did you share photos of your decorations? I don't think I saw. I'll go see after the live show.
No, I did. Actually, I didn't. I do have photos, but I didn't share them.
You should share them in your stories afterwards. I want to see.
I will definitely do that. I might even, let's see, in the midst of all this, maybe I can get one photo up on the screen.
I'll have
I
to
guess
watch on
while
my phone because it's still frozen here. I'll keep it open.
I think a perfect way to get me to do that, because I've seen your trailer multiple times. Let's play the trailer for your fan
sounds
film
good to me.
Stalks II, and then we can get into that.
Perfect.
Let's turn this background music off. All right.
Mom, is the boogeyman real?
Listen to me. There's no such thing as the boogeyman.
William, honey? There's someone in the house. We can't stay here. We have to go now.
Such good memories right there, man.
Yeah, well, let's is there anything right off the bat you want to say about it?
Well, this year was the first year in 3 years that I wasn't working on a Halloween fan film, and it felt like something was missing because I started back in 2022 with the first one. While I was doing that one, it never occurred to me that a sequel would ever see the light of day. And actually, I decided I was going to make one probably less than 2 weeks after the first one was released. And it was a way to cope, actually, because I don't know if it was the same thing for you, but you get invested in making those. And making the first one was very, very special to me. We were a pretty tiny bunch of people doing that. It was very indie. One thing I didn't plan was that at some point the process would end. The day you put it online and you put it out so people can watch it, from one day to the next, you have nothing left to do. And I kind of felt some emptiness in me. So within a few days, ideas for a second one kind of appeared in my mind. And I decided to move forward because it was a way to just save myself from that emptiness. And yeah, for the second one, I think I was a little bit more prepared. The work was 10 times more colossal though. So when the second one was done, I was kind of happy that it was done. I really needed a break. But then spooky season 24 happened, and I just realized I'm not working on Halloween related stuff right now, which I was doing for 2 years in a row. And I don't know, I kind of missed it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can understand that. I had a similar feeling being back in the spot where I shot a good amount of stuff and not having to do that this time. You definitely, yeah, you miss it. You want to. It's always like I think with filmmaking, it's always like a bittersweet thing because it's like awesome. It's, you know, if you're a filmmaker, it's one of the best things you can do in your life. But at the same time, you do feel like that a lot of times. Like you just want it to be over. But then as soon as it's over, you're like, okay, well, what's the next thing?
Yeah, we always want what we don't have.
Yeah.
But there's something very special about creating something. Like creation is probably the best high there is. I've never tried hard drugs or anything. I think I tried pot at some point, but so I don't know if I'm speaking in the void there, but I think that creating something is the best high you ever can get. You're like on your mark, you're doing what you're best at, and you have people surrounding you that you brought in with you. It's really special. And then you see you will celebrate every little victory along the way until the very end when you watch the final product. And if it lives up to your vision, then wow, there's something there that words quite can't describe.
Yeah, I would entirely agree. It's so in some ways it becomes a problem because, like, you know, if you think about hanging out with your friends, in whatever ways you're doing that, video games, going out, whatever. When you're, at least in my case as a filmmaker, a lot of times, like, I don't even want to do any of that. I just want to, you know, keep making movies over doing that and, you know, putting time towards that. And
I would do one every year if I could. Like, we don't make money out of those, so it would be hard to keep a quality level up, I'd say. But if money wasn't an issue and if we lived in a perfect world, I would just keep doing them, like once a year. You take 6 months off, then you work 6 months on the next one. And it's not the ideas that are lacking here.
Yeah. Even saying that though, like I'm someone who I always want to be doing something, and that's depending on what you're making. You know, sometimes that's just the time it requires to make it right, which can be frustrating. You know, you want it to move faster so you can just get on, just so you can keep creating. And especially when you're talking about a feature film, you know, it takes a lot of time to fully get through that process.
Oh yeah, it was. This one was almost a year of work. I mean, going back to the idea of the thing, to writing the script, the big chunk of it, of course, was production, filming, and then post-production. And those two big parts it lasted for maybe 5 or 6 months. But I took like a leave of absence of everything else to focus solely on that, because it was important to me, and it actually required that amount of work and dedication to bring this to where I managed to brought it.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I love your film, man. It's very
Thank
high
you.
quality. Yeah, it's very high quality. You did the shape and his mask justice, the atmosphere, cinematography, the suspense you were able to build in the scenes. You just did a really great job.
I surrounded myself with the best I could find, actually the best there are. People that would, embark on this journey. It took 8 nights of filming, and we did film during the nights because most of it happened outside. So you cannot cheat that. And they all came for the long run, and they enjoyed it, and they were so good at what they were doing. So I was the captain of the ship, but a ship will not sail if you don't have the crew that can manage it. So a big shout out to my crew who not only helped me out but actually actualized my vision. I owe it to them.
Yeah, and speaking of that crew, how did you know a lot of those people beforehand, or did you just kind of find them?
A few of them came back from the first one. I'd say the key players, like my DP. On the first one, I didn't have a first AD. I don't know how I managed to do that. But I think those key players then enrolled people I didn't know, so we became friends. But most of them I did meet on our first day on set. Yeah, even the actors. My main character Ellen, I got a reference for someone because for the longest time I couldn't find an actress that would be willing to, like I said, come for 8 consecutive nights, not consecutive, but 8 full nights within a short amount of time to film something that was actually quite physical. And when I found Catherine, who's magnificent in the role, I mean, it was a blessing. But I met her probably for the first time in person a week or two prior to filming, so we could discuss the character and have her try the costume. But no, most people I met because of the film. Yeah.
How many do you know, like the total size of the crew you had?
I think in the range of 50 people worked on the film, not all at the same time. We would usually be between 20 and 25 on set at each time.
Oh, looks like we something happened here. We just lost him. Sorry about
Can
that.
you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. It dropped you for a second.
And because it dropped, let's see if people still can hear us. Anybody? Do you hear me? You see me, but do you hear me? Marianne, Marky Mark, are you still with us?
Yeah, anybody watching?
Just in case, because I don't like to repeat myself.
Okay, they can hear you.
Yes, sir, they say. Awesome. So, yeah, we would be 20 to 25 per night on set, but in the overall, in post-production as well, all in all, I think it's a cast and crew of 50 people, which is impressive because they weren't paid. Thank you again.
Yeah, that makes it even more impressive, and especially, the longer you do it, even if it's people as you get older and you're busier and whatever you got going on, it just becomes harder and harder to do that. So it is a really special thing especially of that size.
It is,
yeah.
And it's very flattering because they come because they believe in your vision and because you manage to convince them. So I guess I'm a good seller when it comes to my passion projects. Like they feel it. They feel I really, really want to do something special. And we actually did. Like I never thought the second one would end up at that level of quality. Like my DP threw in his $80,000 camera. Everybody threw in something. We had 5 filming locations. None of those owners, that most of them I didn't know, would ask for anything. They just were happy to help out, 5 houses. Like when we were filming that scene with the grandmother, it's a pretty short scene halfway through the film. The house we were filming in, I had met the 2 owners maybe a week before. They didn't know me. They gave me the key to the house. They left for the evening. They went to the restaurant. Like, take the time you need. They knew we would be a hand colony, like rampaging their house. No problem. We're happy to help. Like, how and when does that happen? I don't understand. Still to this day, I don't understand.
Yeah, that's something that definitely can be rare, and because of that, if you get that opportunity, definitely take advantage of it. And I know, like, if they're willing to do that, that's great. I do understand, though, kind of being, feeling like you don't want to continue to do that because you might feel like you're taking advantage or something. But I'd say
that's
like,
the thing.
Yeah.
I would have loved to be able to pay everybody fairly. I just didn't have the means, so I asked for help. If it was no, it was no, and there wouldn't be any hard feeling. But the fact that they opened their door and like accepted to help out, wow, man, this is very, very flattering, and it's humbling in a way as well.
Yeah, definitely. if there's one thing that can bring it to like a screeching halt, it's, you know, the budget, just not being able to afford it. So that's awesome, man, that worked out for you, and to have that
I tried
size.
to raise some money, but you know, running a like Indiegogo campaign would be a full-time job actually.
Yeah.
I created one, but I was too busy working in the film to keep promoting that. So didn't really work out in the end. So I had to, because even though none of those people were paid, the movie or the film actually did cost a lot, you know, for
Yeah.
gas, food, unplanned expenses, props, rentals. In the end, the bill keeps adding up. And yeah, I funded the whole thing myself. So that's why I cannot go the route of doing that once a year, even if I would love to, because I would have to start selling body parts. Hopefully not mine, but I don't see any other way I would keep like financing those fan films.
Yeah, that's, yeah, I feel you on that. I do have a question. How many was Stalks II your first film that you made? Like, you haven't made anything else?
Halloween Stocks was my first one the year before. Stocks 2 was my second one. Those were my first professional projects, I'll call it this way, professional films, let's say, because for 8 years now I've been working as a freelance videographer, but mostly in corporate stuff or even filming. So it's not the same level.
Yeah.
Like making video, you just get there with your camera, and regardless of the visual conditions, you're not going to work lights or stuff like that, and you're on your own. You're just filming what's happening in front of you, making a film with a crew that will set lights, set decorations or whatever. It's a whole other ball game. And Halloween Stocks, my first one, was meant as an exercise, because I just wanted to get out there and experiment or practice what it was like to film a scary scene. At first, Halloween Stocks was only going to be a scene. When the boyfriend gets out of the house and then the shape is standing behind a tree. Remember that scene in the first one? That's what I envisioned first, and I was going just to film that. But then I got caught in my own head, like what happened before to lead to that, and what would happen after, and it ended up with a 14-page script. But it was meant as an exercise, so I really wanted to experiment what it was like to set lights at night, like to light a set at night, to build tension in the scene in the way you shoot your angles or you edit it. And once that was done, the second one was more I approached the second one as it's not an exercise, I'm really making a film. So I tried to up everything a big notch to make something very special. So in a way, Stocks 2 would be my first professional feature.
Yeah. Well, my film kind of had the same origin, where it started with just me wanting to do a scene. That thing in my town that I mentioned, I just thought, like, oh, that's the perfect thing to shoot a thing with Michael Myers. And then it just started growing from there. And the whole concept mine is based off of is Michael Myers, the Shape, going after his original mask, the clown mask. And
kudos for the concept, by the way. We'll talk more about that later, but I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that. And well, I'd say maybe less than half of that goes to me, because the person who came up with that idea is Cole, who he plays the Shape also in the film, and the character Dean. And he actually he came up with that because I didn't know. In reality, I guess you don't really need a reason. There's plenty of fan films that there's no reason. He's just killing people. But I wanted some kind of reason, like, why is he doing this? There's got to be something. And he started like mentioning the original mask. Maybe he's looking for his original mask. And we just kind of met in the middle, and he the Shape ends up in Arizona looking for his clown mask that was apparently donated to Goodwill, which is that's kind of the groundwork of where my film came from.
What I enjoyed about it is that, personally, I always felt like, as a fan filmmaker, I'm a guest in that universe. So I never felt entitled to build new mythology.
Yeah.
The character itself, uh, unless you don't like represent it physically in a good way, you won't add something to the character. I mean, in his presence, like he doesn't have a narrative arc, or usually, if you would do that, it would be with other characters, and I would never feel comfortable to like cast a friend of mine or an actress and you are Laurie Strode in my film. I I would fear it would be disrespectful to what came before. So I'm in the arena, but I tell my own story using that Michael Myers character. But the way you manage to build some mythology without um, lacking or disrespecting anything, like it was an angle that was super smart yet very subtle. So in my book, it's like the perfect spot and the perfect thing to do if you want to add an extra layer to the character of the shape. So that's what I really enjoyed about yours.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you. I appreciate
Sure.
that. um, the I guess something I did, or the reason I asked that one of the earlier questions, I was just curious, like when it comes to filmmaking, would you like if you had something you wanted to make, and let's say you couldn't get crew or whatever it is, and since you're a videographer, which is essentially also what I do for the past 3 years, you can work your way around a camera, you can shoot stuff. Would you make something completely on your own, or maybe with some other actors, but without the
It
whole
would
crew
depend
thing?
of the project, but I'm actually working on something that I'm kind of doing as a one-man army right now. Benoit, who is one of the two actors who portrayed the shape in the second film and who played the shape entirely in my first film, we've been friends for 20 years. And a year ago, he lost his dog, and he had this dog for since the dog was born, actually, so for maybe 10 or 12 years. And to this day he hasn't really recovered about that, and he asked me to if it was possible to make a homage video or something special to uh, honor the dog, and I came up with an idea of recreating a scene from Top Gun Maverick, because my friend Benoit is also a pilot, and we take that scene from the film and we rework it a little to make it about the dog. And we started filming last weekend, and we're actually making a short film. It's going to be 4 minutes long, and we're making it as cinematic as we can. But this time, there's no crew. It's me, it's him, it's his girlfriend. It's pretty much about it. But we're going to make the best we can, and so far the footage we have looks good. So I think I can manage to make something cool on my own as well, but it's never going to be the same as when you have a crew and the equipment that comes with the crew.
Yeah.
Because the crew, when we have 10, 15, 20 people on set, they're all working with different equipments. If I would have access to all this equipment, but being on my own, I mean, I would need 3 days just to set up something, then shoot. So that's why when you're on your own, you have to be light equipped. So it goes fast, like what we would call run and gun. So it's that fine balance of shooting with very tiny equipment, but managing to get some cinematic shots. But we're doing it right now, so the answer would be yes.
Yeah. That's the that's like the lane I've been in for the past couple years. I've I think I've only made one film where I had like a full crew, and even then it wasn't like a huge one, maybe 12 people or something. But and that was
There
a
were
couple.
10 of us on Halloween Stocks. Only
Yeah.
10.
Yeah, I mean that's really, for that kind of film, that's really all you need for the most part. I guess depending on the equipment you're using, but the that film I made was a couple years ago, and for the longest time, like I wasn't making anything because I was like, oh, this thing needs a budget, it needs a crew, it needs all this, stuff. But the problem with that is, like I said before, that it can bring stuff to like a screeching halt, because if you can't get it, well, then you just can't do it. And there's different ways to raise money. You can crowdfund, you can do it yourself or whatever, but it definitely slows things down. And a couple years ago, I just kind of shifted lanes and was like, I'm just going to start making stuff mainly on my own. which
I like it.
yeah, and it is gratifying, but it's funny because it's like when you do that, you have more freedom. You have the freedom to do anything, but you can't do everything when you're basically doing it yourself and maybe one or two other people. Because
Oh, even with a crew of 50 people, you can't do you can do everything. I would have loved to do 10 times more of what we filmed on Stalks II. But what you say is really does resonate with me. Making a Halloween fan film, maybe the idea came up in 2021, but making a short horror film, that's an idea that I had or an envy to try. I had for years, but before even thinking about budget or equipment or crew, I was like stopped by fear, the fear that I wouldn't do good enough because I wasn't experienced enough. But that first film was a way to gain experience, so it's contradictory. But for years, I put the brakes, and I would find every excuses to delay the making of a first horror film because I was afraid. And then there was this morning, I think it was in summer 2022, so a few months before making the first Halloween Stalks, that I woke up and a new feeling was inhabiting me. I realized the prospect of not doing it is now scarier than the idea of trying. So I went through a whole process without really realizing it until when it was happening.
yeah, and I think not making it so precious where it's like everything's got to be perfect. I need this or I can't do it. It's so much more satisfying. Obviously, that's not right for everything. Some things you just, if you want to do it a certain way and you need this to do it and you can't get it, then just don't do it. Wait till you can do it. But for a lot of things, it's just more gratifying to just not take things so preciously, or like, because it shuts you down like that. You become afraid, and it's just not a great way to work. And the result of that is you just don't get a lot done.
If you do it because you enjoy doing it and you want to have fun, then it kind of eliminates the stress and the fear. You're doing it for the right reason, and you're enjoying yourself. Like before our first filming night on the first Halloween Stalks, I think there were three of us, and we just went in the woods to make some tests, some lighting tests, and I just wanted to see what it was to bring the gear out there in the woods, because most of the first one happens in the woods. And we just set one light up, and we set the camera, and I asked Benoit to come dressed as the character so we would see how the mask looked in that kind of lighting. And when he walked in front of the camera in that light, the feeling inside, I was a kid. I was afraid, but a nice afraid, It's my friend. It's a character. There's a camera right there. I know that I'm doing something technical, yet I have goosebumps, and I'm kind of freaked out. I was giving him directions, and I was actually not looking in his eyes. I was looking next to his head because I couldn't look right at him because I was spooked. And then I knew whatever we do, it's going to be good, because the way I feel now, it's going to translate to the screen. Even if it's not the best shot or a huge crane camera movement, or we don't have at that time the nicest camera, or we have a tiny crew, whatever we do, as small as it's going to be good. And the first one, everybody enjoyed it. Like I keep receiving messages of people who enjoyed it for his simplicity and his the heart that's in it. Almost 2 years after its release. So that's a blessing, and it says a lot as well about when you do things for the right reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And that feeling is huge. That'll tell you a lot how you're feeling as you're shooting it. And I'd say for the most part, like, that's a huge gauge on how it'll turn out, but not always. Sometimes you feel like, oh my God, this is going terribly, but then it's actually not. It's just you just can't.
Between you and I, it always goes terribly in my head. Everything I do is crap. And then I get it into the computer, I start putting it together, and then it's still crap. But there's a point at some time that I'll put some music on, I'll add one effect, I'll just move one cut, and then it becomes a story. It becomes a film. but it never happens right away. It always takes time. I always doubt myself, but I guess it pushes me to try to do better all the time.
Yeah, it's there's definitely magic in editing. It's a lot of times you'll start piecing it together and be like, oh my god, this is the only shot I have, or I thought I got this and I didn't get it, or I thought this was totally something else. I know I had
Yeah.
I had some and I'll admit this on my film with a certain actor. His first take, and he's not exactly an actor. He doesn't go out and audition and stuff. He just does it sometimes, which is kind of what I do. Like, I'll act, but I don't really consider myself an actor. I'm not going out and doing it, mainly just for my own stuff and my friends or whatever. But this actor, his first take was perfect, and on set, I was like giving him directions, and we did a couple takes, and just it's one of those times because sometimes you give directions and you're making it better. Other times you can just make it worse. And this is an option, a time where I was making it worse, and I didn't realize that until I got in the edit, and I was like, oh my god, he like nailed it the first take, and I for some reason was like second guessing that and thinking it was totally wrong, and I was totally wrong. Which is like sometimes
That's the fun of working with people and giving them room to bring their own thing, as a director. But just as myself, I'm a bit of a control freak usually, because I have a clear vision, and it's kind of, if I don't nail it, it's probably not gonna work. But then making those two films was a very nice learning curve, because I would learn to I brought people in that were good in some things, way better than I am. So I had to leave room and do your thing, either technicians or actors, And actors would come to me and, the way you wrote it, I'm not sure. Or the way you're asking me to play it, I'm not so sure, because the way I think the character is thinking, blah, blah. And all the time they would be right, because they took, of course, the material seriously when they came up on board. And they bring their A game, but they bring their experience as well, experience that I don't have in every field. So now I feel much more comfortable and confident in leaving room to people to elevate the stuff with me.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's more collaborative than feels comfortable sometimes. If you because it is, as a director, it's your vision. You want things to happen a certain way, but like, collaboration is huge, and that's something I do, and I recommend in terms of giving an actor space. Like, make sure they know what they're understand what's happening, but I like to just I don't give them too much direction, and just I'll see what they do and then adjust from there, because sometimes even if you don't realize it at the time, that's their instincts are right, and whatever you thought in your head is not, or it's not as good,
and the whole thing will be more coherent because they approach the role in a certain way. So if their instinct tell them, and then they share with you that their character should be acting this way instead of that way, the whole thing would be more coherent. It wouldn't be the case if you would force your idea. No, I really want you to do this that way, and then it would like be there would be a break of tone within all the thing. It would be like a bumpy road instead of a smooth play throughout.
Yeah, and I know some filmmakers, they kind of go on with this idea with like, I want to be like an auteur, and it's like, I'm going to drop the hammer. It's whatever I want. Like, it's got to be my vision. But like, I don't think they realize a lot of directors who you think might be like that. People like David Fincher, or is famous for doing multiple takes and being an auteur and stuff. Even, I can't speak for every movie, but I know I've heard, other actors talk about working with him, and he's not like that, essentially. Like, he might ask you to do it a lot, but he's not like so specific where it's like, everything is what he said and that's what they did. He's a collaborative director, essentially, but of course he is an auteur and he knows what he's doing.
It helps to create a fun and light set as well.
Yeah.
If you hire people and they're all executing tasks, they're not going to enjoy their experience. But if they all feel that they're part of something and they all contribute, the set life will be way more pleasant and efficient as well. And they will come back for your next project as well, because that's what you do in the end. If you want to make movies, you want to build a cast and crew, or at least a crew, that will come back again and again, because over time you develop a sense of confidence, or you know how they work. So there's a communication that's not necessary at some point, because you know how each other work. So it goes way more faster over time from film to film.
Yeah, people enjoying themselves on whatever they're making, that's huge, because and you'll see that from older actors, like it becomes less about the project and more about who they're working with, because I just want to have a good experience on whatever film
they will pick their projects,
yeah, exactly,
mostly based on that. They want to enjoy the time they will spend there. They're not their money is made already, so they're not they don't keep working because they want to make money at some point. I mean, when you have the luxury of picking your project, and you have an actor that will accept to work on yours, like the grandma in my second film. She's very well known here in Quebec, and she's a singer, she's a host, she's an actress, and she's quite busy. So I managed to get in touch with her. She listened to me, she read her part, and she felt it was fun enough to join and give me a night of her time. So she came because of the fun she was expecting to experience, not because of the paycheck that there wasn't, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a big part of it in your case too is just because you live in Canada, and I guess it depends on what area, because there are big film markets in Canada, of course, but obviously Hollywood is Hollywood, and that's like the core of worldwide movies for the most part. So it's like it's way more common for people to do stuff out here than somewhere like Canada. Of course, there's other countries where it's even more so, but there's more people.
Well, I'm in French Canada, so the film market here is very small, and the budgets and conditions are tight. So the working conditions are not always nice.
Yeah.
So people who work as actors or actress or film technicians, and when they do it for a living, they have a hard life. So that says a lot when they accept to come on your set for free, because your project talks to them. That says a lot, I think.
Yeah, it definitely does. And it also just shows there's, I don't know if hungry is the right word, but there's more people, because there's less quality stuff, maybe. Like there's no shortage of people making movies in the US, so it's a lot more common. So things are more diluted, it's easier to stand out when there's less people doing it, obviously. So it's a definite
there's
advantage.
Plenty of newcomers here. After the pandemic, a lot of people quit their job, or their job dropped them, and they kind of just threw themselves in filmmaking or video making. And there are more and more young and emerging indie filmmakers here, and ideas are there. Sometimes the means are not, but they're experiencing. But there's a lot of creativity going around, and it's very inspiring. So even if we have a small market here, sometimes it is competitive, because there's a lot of stuff being made. I can see it in festivals, in short film festivals.
Yeah, that whole market is totally saturated, and part of that is just because it's so easy to get quality, filmmaking equipment. All you need is like the latest iPhone, and that gets you so much of the way there.
I know, it's scary.
Yeah, and there's just less limitations, so it's easier. More people are making them, and every year they become higher and higher quality. So it does every year. It's more competitive when you're making this stuff.
That though would be regarding the technical aspects, but because there is the storytelling and the knowledge of how making a film. Like, you have the right tools, fine, but you need to know how to operate those tools.
Yeah.
And that comes from years of experience and learnings, and even school before that. I cannot say that I did go to film school. I cannot say that that's where I really learned most of what I apply today. I mostly learned how to act on a set, the attitude to have. On a technical aspect, the technology is always evolving. So what I learned 10 years ago or 15 years ago is not accurate anymore. So it's more of a life learning from experience to experience. But those basics are important before you start a career as a filmmaker. So yeah, you can have the right tools, but you you need to know how to operate them to make something that is worthy.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And story is always king. So that's the main way to stand out, is just have a very awesome original story. And
So the film you told me that you made 2 years ago, and this one, those would be your two first scripts?
no, well, the one I was talking about where I had the crew, that was actually, I think, in 2016.
Oh, okay, it's a bit long. Yeah, a bit more longer ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was definitely my first, what I'd consider my first film, and that's that one where I actually had a crew, shot it on an Alexa, but it was an older one. I think it was like one of the original ones.
Still,
Yeah,
at
well,
the
that was
time,
just,
that was pretty cool.
yeah. Well, that's just because I also went to a film school, and that was like the thesis film, so they did have that camera to rent, and like one of the original Reds too, which was nice. The best part to me about going to a film school was access to equipment like that, and just the people like you meet. Not so much what they're teaching you, although that is helpful. A lot of that stuff you can just learn on your own or just from experience. It was more of the equipment use and the people you meet, which that's where I met Cole, and
The connections,
Yeah,
they
the
are so
connections.
important. Yeah.
and that's where I met my best friend and filmmaking partner, essentially. And we're still doing stuff to this day. Technically on a smaller scale than even that, which is kind of funny. But that does bring me to something else I wanted to mention, just on a
Sure.
like an objective view, just like differences in filmmaking, what you can, or to compare and contrast stuff. So basically what you can, with my film, and I'm trying to make this objective. It is kind of weird saying this, but I'm basically just trying to say, with my film I had no crew, and it was essentially me and Cole making it, and one scene where there's, and my daughter, one scene where there's two other actors, but it was essentially just us two, that made
So
it.
you were directing while holding the camera, while thinking what's the next shot, while probably recording the sound as well. They would have microphones on them. How was it going if you were a one-man crew with Cole,
Yeah,
a two-man crew?
Yeah, exactly. One man, two man crew, and also acting in it. It was I'll admit, years ago, like when I was in film school, that's something I would have thought like, oh, that's cool, it says something about you. Now I'm just like, please give me the crew. Like, I don't want to do it like this. It's just I'm doing it because I have no choice, or I do have a choice, but like I'm not willing. I would rather just make something than to wait on that, and depending on the project, of course. I do have projects I want to do that I just won't do without a crew. I want them. I want a crew and DP and all that, just because in my mind, for that project, it needs to be that way. And
It's way more fun to focus on one task, but on the other hand, you cannot do everything perfectly if you handle everything at once. I mean, you're on a film, you have to think about directing the actors, getting the shot on camera. So where is the camera going to be? Is it a static shot or not? If it's not, you're going to operate either a slider or a crane or whatever, but you have also to record the sound, and you have to light everything. And if they're moving, the light has to be set on a larger scale. So at some point, you cannot humanly do it on your own, or you'll have to leave stuff at home, and you're going to use natural light, and you're going to put one microphone on them. But then if they're walking, you will hear the microphone rubbing against the clothes. You need a crew. If you're making a film, at least a small crew, but you need some help. You need extra hands. You cannot handle everything by yourself. I learned that the hard way, and now there's no going back. I'm doing it with Benoit, but it's a film that there's no sound recording in it, so it's a bit easier, but still, it's not the same thing as having people who are helping out.
Yeah, it's certainly not ideal, and it's not the best way to do it, but it is, like I said, it's dependent on the project. I just think it's interesting, and again, I don't like it that way. I would much rather have a crew. I don't want to be responsible for everything, especially lighting. Like, we're both videographers. I can shoot stuff. I don't want to be responsible for lighting and stuff. That's just not what I do. I'd rather have someone else who knows what they're doing and likes to do that. I just kind of make do because I have no choice. But I guess what I'm just trying to say is it is interesting to look at how far you can go, with nothing essentially.
Nothing but will, the
yeah,
will of doing something.
Nothing but will, and like for example, or it also shows what you do get when you add the extra layer of having a bunch or some other crew members, a DP, a skilled DP, awesome camera. Like without a doubt, your film, I think it looks incredible. It looks better than my film. But it's also like that's what you get when you have a skilled DP who knows what he's doing. Production design.
The look of the film is all because of them. Because I remember bringing the crew or the key players from the crew on the set prior to shooting, to plan what we would do. And I was playing it smart. Like I already figured where we would put the lights and everything I would explain to them, they would say, no, that's not the way to do it. No. If you're putting that, it ruins the thing. You have to put it there. So they know way better.
Yeah.
The film wouldn't have looked the same even if I had all the time in the world and I took 80 nights instead of 8 by doing everything myself, even though it wouldn't look the same because there's a DP and there's his grips and they're all good at what they do and they are way better than I am. I'm only the director here. Let me play with my actors and make the scene visually look good, please.
Yeah, that's the way to do it, and it's definitely being able to just focus on what a director should focus on, story and characters. It's
good to know what you're talking about when they come to you and they talk about stuff. If you understand that, that's very good. You will save time. Like during the filming of the second one, I learned a lot about gripping and lighting and DPing, I'll call it like that. But again, I wouldn't want to do it because they would take an hour and a half to light perfectly a scene, and there would be 6 of them working on that. I cannot do it by myself. If I want to replicate that as a one-man army, making a 3-minute film will require 10 days. Like, it makes no sense. It will almost be 3 shots per filming day.
Yeah, which that's, if that's how you want to do it, which is the actual, filmmaking process, that's just what you got to go through, which can be frustrating. And, depending on your budget, it can be limiting because they're like, okay, well, I can only get 3 scenes done today. Where if you're doing it yourself, you could almost shoot the whole movie depending how long, what you're doing.
Yours is like what, 15 minutes, I think?
15 minutes.
Am I 15? Okay. And how long did it take to shoot? Like how many nights or days or how many hours did it take to make?
Technically, initially it was 2 days, and we didn't film. I don't even think it was 12-hour days each day, but technically 2 days. I did reshoot a certain scene like a week later, and part of it, the scene where there's 2 other actors that get killed, that was a separate day also, just because it was an entirely different location. But 80% of the film was shot in essentially 2 days.
So it would be like 6 to 7 minutes of footage per day, which is enormous.
Yeah.
Like we wouldn't go through 12-hour shifts neither because we were filming nights and I couldn't keep my crew and my cast up for so long. So they would arrive by 4 or 5 and I would let them go by 3 or 4 in the morning, but there would be 1 hour of lunch in between. So it would be a 10 hours shift. And still we would make maybe 2 minutes. We would film 2 minutes of footage per filming date because it takes that long to make, actually. So it's impressive that you would make 6 or 7 minutes per filming date. But that's what it allows you when you're not lighting it with like 6 different spots and you're doing a light shoot.
Yeah, that's exactly. There's pros and cons. The benefit is you can shoot a lot more. Technically, you're a lot more light on your feet. It's easier to pivot. You don't have to wait to set up. But the downside is you just can't get the same look when you are shooting like that. But you can.
Or you need a magician that will color grade your thing in ways you wouldn't even have expect, but he might ask for a hefty price as well. So
Yeah, I mean that is the thing. Is you can get really close. It's just that extra 5% you can't achieve that way. And even with color grading, like you can't make up for lighting a scene really well. Natural light, which is what I deal with a lot because I rarely use lights, only when it's absolute necessary. It looks, that's its own look, but that only gets you so far. And sometimes it just looks terrible on camera.
it's the combination of different natural lights. If you're shooting outside and there's this street light at night, and there's this house that have their own outdoors light open, and the colors don't match, there's nothing you can do about it because you're shooting with those ongoing parameters that you have no control on. So that's the kind of concessions you have to make.
Yeah, exactly. You're always making choices and compromises, which can be fun, and other times it's not fun. But man, there's like so much we can talk about. I feel like we almost got to do this again, and I'm not trying to wrap it up. It's just crazy because there's so much stuff I would want to talk about, but obviously we do got to cut it off at one point, and of course we lost you again. Here we go.
A perfect time for shutting down. That was
We're
so
done.
funny.
Goodbye. I just knew. I felt it. I felt it coming, so that's why I was saying all that.
Well, while we're still here, I'd like to make some shout outs to some other fan filmmakers and their fan films, their Halloween fan films that came out or that are about to come out. I don't know if you've seen the 78 Slasher from Mark Murta. I think they like reached 50K views tonight, like probably now. I was looking into that earlier, so kudos to Mark's cast and crew. I don't know if you've seen it.
I've seen it.
The Colemans, they came back with a part 5 to their Inferno saga that was more than welcome. It was a very short thing, but so fun to watch. Braden Timmons that treated us with the first part of his new The Last Nightmare. Pretty well done. They worked their butts off for months on that one. James Grimm announced his Halloween Aftermath that I think is coming next year, but he treated us with a trailer. I think the fine gentlemen and gentlewomen at Masked Entertainment came up with the sequel to their Halloween Trespasser series. I think they have 2 of them right now. So of course I will forget hundreds if not thousands of fan films, but just want to shout out to our colleagues who worked their heart out to make something they really cared about.
Yeah, exactly. And there's one thing that's clear: fan films aren't going anywhere. But before
depends. We experienced something different earlier this year.
The desire to want to make them won't go anywhere. I can't speak on what's going to happen. And speaking of that, hopefully we have. I don't know what your time's looking like, but I do have some more stuff to talk about.
Sure.
Which is why I just wanted to throw that in there. I wasn't exactly trying to wrap it up, but or maybe just to say, maybe another half hour or so, depending on.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Yeah, that's what I planned actually. Till
Okay.
9 something here in my time zone.
Perfect. Well, we can get into a little bit about how we came to speaking like this to each other instead of just recognizing, hey, there's another fan film.
Sure thing. Yeah, we experienced something excruciating back in I think it was late April or early May, but I think it was late April.
Yeah, yeah, that's about right. Late April, because I think my film was only out for 3-4 weeks, and I put it out at like mid-April. So that's about right. But man, what kind of weird timing was that? Where specifically with us two, where we both made films, they came out within weeks of each other, and then that happens to not only our films, but the Coleman brothers.
A few others, huh? The Coleman brothers, their Halloween Inferno, and that's what came out like years before, 3 or 4 years, I think. And for the story here, I wasn't aware about fan films until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and the first Halloween fan film I saw was theirs, and it probably prompted something in me that led me to make my own. If
Yeah.
I hadn't watched theirs, I probably wouldn't have made mine a few years later. So I was really sad to see that one go. And there was also, I think, Halloween Night that was was removed. There were at least 4 films that got kicked out.
Yeah. Halloween Night, I never ended up seeing that one. I don't know if they have any plan to put it out again.
I'm not sure, but I think somebody else re-uploaded it somewhere. So, but it's pretty recent, so you can look it up.
Yeah, well, I'll definitely have to do that. It's and I know we talked a little bit about that and before we went live on what was happening to us. And is there anything you want to say about that specifically?
Oh, well, if some people are curious, the way it all unfolded, mine was released on March 15th, and 6 weeks after, I get this notification from YouTube. Like, I get an email from YouTube stating that the film has been removed following a complaint from the studios because of a copyright issue with the music. Even though the music we did compose entirely, we still borrowed the melodies. And fair play. I really thought it was a calculated risk when I decided to make fan films, because there's no clear rules other than you cannot make money out of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's no clear guidelines. But when you see that on YouTube, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Halloween fan films, and some of them go back like 10 years ago, you feel like it's safe and perhaps supported by the studios. My take here, and I don't know the absolute truth, but what I think happened is, for 5 years, the rights were sent over at Blumhouse, during which time they made their trilogy. And I read somewhere that Jason Blum is very supportive of fan films. He loves them. Like, he encouraged people to make them. I also believe that fan films with a higher level of quality started to happen within that gap. Before that, it would be more amateur films, for the lack of a better words. So perhaps the true owner of the rights saw that happening and waited for the rights to come back to them, so they would be able to act accordingly online and get stuff they didn't want there removed. So it's probably just a question of bad timing, because I felt like encouraged to go all the way to make the best I could do, just for the second one to be removed, sadly. But when I uploaded the second one back in March, YouTube right off the bat gave me a copyright claim, like, the music in your film is copyrighted. So far, there's no issue with the owner of the copyright. It could change, but it was already flagged, which was not the case when I re-uploaded it like last month.
Same.
Because we did rework the entire music.
Yeah.
To this day, I'm not sure if my film is there to stay. We never know. What I tried to do is to remove everything that could be a copyright issue, so the music, and I even changed the title. I removed the word Halloween from the title, but the only thing I couldn't remove was the mask. Where I feel safe about that is I'm not using original stills from the original films. I'm lighting the mask. It's the same mask in a way, but I'm framing it myself. I'm lighting it myself. So I'm not using copyright images, as it was the case with copyright music. It would be easier to say, hey, look at the melodies, look at how the notes happen one after the other. It's our tune. When it's a mask that you are filming yourself, it might not be considered as a copyright infringement. I don't know. But so far, so good. The film has been online for almost 5 weeks now. It's still up there. So I'm touching wood and crossing my fingers, because this is the most meaningful thing I've ever done. Like, of course, I made it with means and professionalism, so it would serve as some sort of a business card, like, look at what I can do. but it's a very personal project. Like for a year, I put pretty much everything on pause to solely focus on that because I felt I had something to say, to tell. I had a story to tell. I wanted to make something good for people. So I can only hope that it will remain. If not, I mean, I will have tried everything I could, and it will have had a pretty decent life over the span of the month of October. So whatever happens from now, I have no regrets. I'm just happy for the ride I had to experience. What about you?
Yeah, well, talk about terrible timing. I'll never forget. I woke up, I don't know, 2 or 3 in the morning to check it because, at least on my channel, it's one of the more successful things I've done in terms of, organically just views and likes and comments just streaming in. And I checked it at 2 a.m. and it just wasn't there. And I remember like my heart like racing at 2 a.m. like, what? Just freaking out, not understanding what's going on because it just on my phone it didn't show anything. But when you go on the use a desktop, it shows you the video, but it says it was removed through copyright or whatever. And that was obviously devastating, like I know it was for you. And I know we both didn't realize at first that it was other fan films as well. Like I thought it was just mine.
Mm-hmm.
But just talk about terrible timing. Because I've been aware of fan films for a long time, like over the years. Always been aware of them, and I kind of like you. I had something come over me, like the combination of that and what happens in my town, just wanting to do it myself. And I've seen years of other people making them, no issues, doing well. Fans are loving it, and of course, we try to do it, have a great experience. It's awesome, and then that happens. So it's extremely bad timing that when we decided to do it, that they apparently had a change of heart, which I agree. I think it was the changing of the rights. Somebody wasn't as cool with it as they had been in the past. But it's such a weird thing because the logic to it doesn't really make that much sense. But in reality, all that matters is it is a weird gray area, fan films, and the rights holders have full ability at any time to, act or not act. And for some reason, we'll never know exactly why they decided to act on that. But so far, so good. One thing I will say about it is, I guess something before that. We sort of started a support group. Is that what you would call it? Once we became aware.
We kind of reached out to every other fan filmmakers that could be impacted, that were impacted at the same time as we were, and we created that messenger Facebook group to try to understand, like everybody would bring up their knowledge or experience into the discussion. So we just tried to figure out what was happening then. But that mutual support from everyone was key to overcome what happened then, because back in April or early May, I didn't have any plans of re-uploading it after perhaps reworking the music. I really thought it was a done deal, and I felt pretty bad, like for 2 or 3 months. And that support group really was some sort of comfort. Yeah, I will say.
Yeah, it definitely was to know that you weren't alone, and we could talk to each other about it. I did think it was just funny because I was like, this is like the Halloween fan film support group. Every Thursday we had
it's what it
meetings.
was.
Yeah, but it did help, and we did, to the credit of the rights holders, they did reach out, which I respect that, and that was awesome of them to do, even though it still stung, but they at least.
And I understand their position. They have an IP to protect. Like I was joking with friends of mine when I was telling the story of what happened. And if someday I have my own IP, I'm hiring them to protect my IP, because they are really at the gates, making sure everything is treated with respect. And I don't know throughout the years how many times some people would try to abuse that IP. So at what point do they really dig into every situation? like they get notified from YouTube that you and I would use their copyright property, and no, they just take it off because they have plenty on their plates. So the fact that I think we both reached out to them to try to express our feelings and ask for some some understanding or clemency, which in the end didn't happen, but they did reply and they did express their own position, and yeah, that I really appreciated.
Yeah, it it's definitely not what I expected. I figured they were just going to ignore it because
Dismiss everything,
Yeah.
yeah, and it came in within a few days.
Yeah, so again, give them credit for that, even though I don't totally agree. But there is, more we could speak on it, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter because it's up to them,
Only sad thing is it might stops other emerging filmmakers that would like to explore throughout the fandom. They might just not do it, or perhaps you had a sequel in mind that you're not going to do, or
Oh yeah.
I have a part 3 that's almost entirely mapped out in my head, but I don't feel comfortable to make it now. So my options are I make it anyway, but it's a huge risk, or I transform it a bit, I modify it and translate it into an original project, but it's so Halloween, so it's hard to change it too much, or I shelve it and someday I just drop in Hollywood to the door at the door of those right holders and, hey guys, look, I have some ideas here. I don't know, but one thing I know, those ideas, they're not gonna leave my head. I'll have to shelve them, but they will remain in here because it's a film I would really love to make.
Yeah, same exact boat. I had an idea for a second one. I was really excited about it. It was going to be bigger, grander. I was going to bring on a crew, spend actual money on it, and of course that happened. And I'm not going to do that anymore, just because same thing. It's just not worth it. I would love to.
And we're not alone in our case, huh? I
Yeah.
think Mark Murtaugh, who made the 78 slashers, he had a part 2 in mind. I think he canceled it as well. I was pretty surprised when the Colemans came out with a tiny, still professional part 5. Like they made a real. It's 4 or 5 minutes long, but they made a film after their Inferno 3-parters all linked together was removed. They came just in time for Halloween with a new fan film. So that I was really surprised to see. Really happy to, but really surprised.
Yeah, I was surprised too, and I'm glad they did it. I've certainly gone back and forth on it, I'm just gonna do it anyway, but then it's like I don't want to put more into it and then have it happen again, because that would just be even worse.
It's not something I can go through again.
Yeah, I would not wish that on anybody who put all that work into it and have that happen.
Yeah, I don't know. What about you? How long it took to feel better, or if in your case the idea of reworking the score and re-releasing it came early? But for me, I was in a pretty bad place for almost 3 months, May and June and half of July. I tried to cope. I tried to accept things and let go. It didn't feel right, and because of that, inside I was still a bit tortured emotionally. And what changed is I think I met Nick Castle this summer at Montreal Comic Con, and he was announced as a guest pretty late in the process. It was happening 2 weeks later, and it was announced very late. So when I found out about that, oh my god, it's my chance to meet him and tell him about my fan films. And then I got excited again, and I got my fan film on Blu-ray, but I wanted something very don't move.
And for anybody who doesn't know, Nick Castle, he played the Shape in the original Halloween.
I wanted something very, very professional. For a full week, I worked on that. So I designed the whole cover. I bought a software so I could, get the film on a disc. I bought some discs. I created the menu. So almost a full week to get it done and ready in time. And then I got there, and I went on the first day, which was a Friday. He was there for the 3 days, but I wanted to meet him as soon as I could. And by chance, as it was on the Friday, it was not that crowded. So it would take more time individually with people at his signing table. So I think I had almost 5 full minutes with him, and he would ask questions about the filmmaking process. And that's when I realized, okay, no, the story cannot end there. Like, he reignited something within me. So for the following weeks, I started to think about solutions instead of problems. And then, at the same time, in parallel, for months, while I was devastated, I would still keep an eye out, try to understand what was going on, and it would always go back to the copyright music. So I contacted Samuel, the composer of the 2 films, and asked him, "Are you willing to rework the music of the second one?" And he said yes right away. So we spent a full day in the studio tweaking things here and there, and we made the whole score around. And I felt confident to relaunch the thing. So for a full month, I went through the same marketing strategy or whatever I could. So I would re-release a new trailer, new clips, new samples of the music, and it worked pretty well. The film has been online for 34 days now. It's thriving. It's crazy. I'm so happy with it.
Yeah, it's definitely thriving. It's, what is that now, like 130 something thousand?
125 or 26 now. Like, it's unbelievable. I had 3 launches in my life: the release of the first one and the first release of the second one, leading to the new release now. And this is by far the best, like, in such short amount of time. Of course, it's October now, but it's like way beyond my wildest dreams and expectation. Never would have I thought that film would hit the mark so well this time, because it's a re-release. So most people already saw it 6 months ago, but they showed up again, and that shows how much this community is supporting and passionate about all things Michael Myers and Halloween.
Yeah, and congrats on that, man. That I was kind of, my film's a little different because it came out later and it was still on the smaller side, but I was thinking like, oh, is it even going to get to what it was at when it got taken down? And it did. I mean, it surpassed that. Both of our films did, at different levels. But I mean, that speaks to the fan community and the quality of your film. It's definitely thriving. So congrats on that.
Those comments, man, like, put the views and the numbers aside, the comments underneath the film on YouTube, that's where the real gold and the real value is. Reading those comments, and they're not like quick one-liners like "good job." No, long paragraphs of appreciation. Like, they will tell you what they liked. They will show support. They will tell you how they want to help out or share the thing. They will claim and ask for more films. But those messages are so heartwarming and so valuable.
Yeah, they definitely are. They definitely mean a lot, and you would think that the rights holders or whoever's making choices with the franchise would take that into account, because that's the fan community, right? Or the community of fans of Halloween franchise and Michael Myers. Instead of I don't know. Do you think that they actually pay any attention to that, or do you think they're just kind of like, it's its own thing?
It's hard to say, because if I try to put myself in their shoes, as good as a fan filmmaker can be, he doesn't have any background. So I'm not going to go get him or her and, hey, handle our next big multi-million-dollar project. Like, there are financiers behind that. There are legal issues or legal just matters that we're probably not aware of. They probably have so many things to think about. They are in Hollywood, so it's all about profits and sure value. So they will try to get directors that have a long resume. I don't know if it works. I hope they keep an eye open. Like, it would be such a dream to just knock at their door and, like, they know who we are. Like, they're not gonna hire us, but we knock at their door. Hey, we made that fan film. Yeah, we are aware. Like, we know Halloween Stalks and we know Mask of Evil. That would be crazy, man. Just that would mean a lot. A little bit of support like that would be so much valuable as well.
It definitely would. But the funny thing about that is, technically, they do know about our films, and they just took them down.
But at what point do they know? I mean,
Yeah.
the
Do they
ones who
actually watch it? We
decide,
don't know.
they get information relayed to them. Like I doubt the head executives are the ones scrolling on YouTube and trying to remove stuff. They hire lawyers or legal helpers or whatever that will do the job in their name. But at what point those heads did watch our films? I don't know. What I try to do is having people involved in the franchise to watch them, like actors, like Nick Castle, giving him my Blu-ray. Will he ever watch it? I don't know. I was told he did because a friend of mine met him in a convention at a later date, asked him about the films, and Nick Castle told him, "Yeah, I watched them." At one point, is it true? I don't know. But the more people who watch it that are part of the franchise, perhaps at some point, you never know, right? The word could just start spreading. It takes one person.
Yeah, I would hope they don't write it off. And yeah, I wouldn't expect them to just pluck somebody who made one off and be like, "Hey, you're perfect. Let's make one for us." But I think they're missing out if they just even if it was like, they just were getting some kind of a community opinion thing, like, "Hey, we see you're making these fan films. Some of them are pretty cool. We want to hear your feedback on the franchise, and like, what are your ideas?"
That kind of message, it's so important. I think when our films were removed, I don't know for you, but the film being removed by itself was very painful. But I think what hurt the most then is the message that it sent, because our films are love letters. Like, your franchise, your movies inspire us to dive and to give everything we got. And what we get as a feedback to that, kicked out for whatever legal reasons, of course. But the message at the end of the day was kind of hurtful.
Yeah, it definitely was, and I just think they're missing out on not even exploring that.
It's a dialogue that's not quite there.
Yeah,
like there's no open communication there. We did reach out, but there's no continuous dialogue, so we can share opinions. But they don't have time for that. They're working on whatever's coming next, the series, other movies, the Portal that came out. They're busy, and we are fan filmmakers.
Yeah, that's very true. And maybe one day they'll realize the value in that, because
maybe. I don't know if people have questions, because it seems that we might wrap up soon. But before we go, if anyone has questions or want to just join in the chat, I don't know how many people we have with us. But if you guys have questions or want to tell us some things, we're still here for a few minutes.
Yeah, and while we are still here for those few minutes, I don't know if you would want to admit what your favorite Halloween fan film is.
Oh, I have a special attachment for Halloween Inferno. Really, those guys, they ignited something within me. What I really enjoyed is that, other than the three films that they put into one, so it was like 45 minutes long. Other than that, they also shared some behind the scenes video, so you could see them setting up lights, and it looked, as professional as it looked, it also looked like accessible, like something I could do.
Yeah.
So it grew in me that someday I could perhaps do my own Halloween fan film. So I owe a lot to them. But everybody I mentioned earlier when I was giving my shout outs, all people I really respect, and I did enjoy their work. And Dan Marcus as well. I forgot earlier. Dan Marcus came up with it's a light-hearted Halloween movie. It's more of a comedy, but it's called Loomis. So don't miss out Loomis on YouTube. It's very, very recent. It came out last week.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one, because I haven't seen that one either. I would agree with Inferno, because that one did inspire me. I'd come across it, watched it, thought it was really high quality, really well done. And it's kind of a 2-for-1 for me, because I'm someone who did not like the Blumhouse trilogy. The 2018 one, I could watch it, wasn't terrible. I just really despised kills and ends. And that's what I really loved about their film, because they did their own thing with it, and in my opinion, better than the studio films. And that's why I really kind of resonated with it, and it was also an inspiration to me. So and we kind of,
what I liked is that they really cared about the character and bringing up to screen in the most faithful way possible. I remember there is, early in the film, there is a scene I think a man is killed inside a station wagon, and then the shape walks out of the car. And because as they were filming it, the actor portraying the shape, when he walked out of the car, it looked a bit funky and it didn't really look like the character. They had the idea of filming from behind a tree and leaves, so it would hide a little bit of those two human movements and keep the mystery of the character. So the thinking process really got me invested in what they have to offer.
Yeah, that was another great thing is they shared behind the scenes stuff, which is always recommended if you can manage it. And yeah, that's also another part of that sting is that film that both inspired us also was taken down, which maybe that says something, I don't know, but yeah, that. Well,
do we have any questions?
They
Awesome.
do have a question for you if you would make a fan film for any other franchise. Obviously, I know the answer, but let's say that wasn't on the table. What other franchise would you make one for?
Oh, I would probably tip my toe in the Scream universe. That
That's
would be a
awesome.
bit harder to make something very, very original, like finding a new approach with those phone calls and things. And even on a technical way, it's way easier in the dark to film the shape who's walking really slowly and keep him in focus than having Ghostface who's running like crazy. That would be, on a technical standpoint, quite a challenge. But I think I would feel very comfortable to visit Woodsboro as well. I love Haddonfield, but Woodsboro would be a pretty good stop for me, I think. But that's all hypothetical because fan fiction right now is probably really off the table.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, just because it's not worth it. But that's unfortunate because I would love to see your rendition of a Scream thing, and that is a tricky one to navigate in terms of living up to that with the twists and turns and the references and all that. So that would be interesting for sure.
It would be a fun exercise to write it down, like to
Okay.
come up with a new story, like a fresh take. Like they struggle to do it in the real franchise. At some point, it's always repetitive. So just finding a little slightly different angle to bring something that's your own.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm pretty sure I would find something to say. I'm
Yeah.
passionate, so when I'm onto something, I don't let go. That's the thing. That's why I love doing what I do. I I keep at it. Like I don't get discouraged when I'm working on something. Even if there's hundred of obstacles, I'll find a way to overcome.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to your next project, and the one you shared is sounds interesting. Is there anything else you're working on?
A few things, yeah. In spring, I'll be filming an original this time. It's a psychological thriller. I call it an homage to Pearl. I don't know if you've seen the Ty West film.
I've seen X. I haven't seen Pearl or Maxine.
Pearl is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a character study, so it's not a fan film. It's an homage. It's our own thing, and there are bits of Silence of the Lambs. Not of, no, no. I'm sorry. There's bits of Psycho into it. So I'm not directing this one. I wrote it and I'm producing it. So I'll be on set and I'll tell the director, I have an idea for this shot. But the director Olivier is a very good friend of mine. Other than that, I'm developing several. I won't say scripts at this point, but I have several stories in my head. I'd love someday to do my own Dexter-ish story, like how do you call it, a villain hero, something like that. But when it comes to scary movies, I have plenty of ideas. I just need to focus on one and to develop it. But the next big thing is what we're filming in spring. Yeah.
Well, that's.
What about you? Before you keep asking questions, I'm returning the question. What about you?
Well, that's primarily because I could just stream again and talk all about myself. I want to hear what you got to say. But as far as my projects, yeah, I got a couple. I have a smaller thing I'm shooting. I'd consider it more of like a sci-fi dimensional thing. It's a smaller project though. But the one I would want to talk about a little bit is my next bigger thing, which is called, well, this is a tentative title, but An Arrival of a Good Beer. and it is one of those things that's better to go in without knowing anything about it. So I would just share
Sounds good.
that it's the log line is a 6-pack of beer arrives on the doorstep of a do-well dad. Is that a sign to live a little or something more? And it's Evil Dead-esque. So I
Holy
think
shit, dude.
you can infer something on what it might be like.
When is it coming out? Like, how far in the process are you? Is it written yet?
It's not entirely. It is something that I could pull together quickly, though. It's more of like, the props and the gags I'm gonna need. It's something I can do with relatively no crew. So I'm not quite sure. I would, idealistically, maybe 2-3 months from now, I might at least have it shot and edited, or in the process of editing it.
It's something. Oh, editing. So it's not, but it's not shot yet.
No, it's not shot yet. I was saying, like, maybe 2 or 3 months from now, it might be after I shoot it in an editing process.
Already. So you would shoot it maybe in 2 months. So
Yes,
during the
most
winter, you can make that one during winter.
Yeah.
So no outdoor scenes. Okay.
So that's my plan, and I got stuff further down the line, but that would be my next big thing.
I'll be looking forward to it, man. The pitch is pretty interesting, and you know how to create curiosity or to suscitate curiosity.
Well, yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm looking forward to yours too. I'm definitely going to be following you and what you're going to do next. And I guess before we go, what is your first and second favorite Halloween film?
First and second. Well, first. The first one. I know it's very boring, but
Obvious
that
answer.
one holds a very special place. The second position, I would say, it actually changes from time to time depending the mood I'm in. When I was a teenager, I would say my second favorite would be Resurrection, because I remember the when and how I went to watch it. Like I was always on the internet, and back then it wasn't as developed as it is now, but for any clue or tip of what was coming up. So every new promotional photo, I was so excited about it, because we wouldn't have had a Halloween film for 4 years then, because H2O came 4 years before. Of course, that changed now. Resurrection is not that good. It's like a guilty pleasure. I'll call it like that. I think second position would either be the 2018. I kind of enjoyed that one, but the first half.
Uh-huh.
I enjoyed it until that killing spree scene from house to house. After that, it becomes a shit show. But the first hour of this film, really, really enjoyed that. Or H2O.
Similar. Halloween 1. Second place would be, I feel like now I would say Halloween 2, because I do like that one. But H2O, that was the one that I'd always watched the most, because it just seemed to always be on, and I have a special place for H2O. So that
There
would
was
be my number
something
2.
accessible about this one.
Yeah.
Like, it was for a modern audience, and I was
Exactly.
12 at the time, so I was scared watching it because I was 12.
Yeah. I would agree, man. Well, it was a pleasure having you on. I really appreciate you coming on.
My very pleasure too, man. Likewise, so let's do it again someday.
We definitely will, and like I said, I'll be following you. And yeah, this was really awesome. I can't thank you enough. Thanks for coming on. It was fun.
My pleasure. See you soon, and take care.
You too. And if you wouldn't mind, just stick around for a minute after this
Will do.
little thing is over, and we'll see you soon. And everyone, thanks for watching.
Game over, man. Game over. What are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?